Welcome to the Holistic Soul Sisters Radio, a channel created to help you heal holistically and grow spiritually. I'm your host, Mandi Rose. I'm not afraid to talk about taboo subjects, so nothing is off limits here. Make sure you hit subscribe and get ready to learn more from me and other experts on all things health, spirituality, astrology, lifestyle, relationships, and so much more. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Let's begin. Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to another episode on our mini-series, Heartbreak to Healed. It's been so inspirational for me recording these episodes, listening to everyone's stories and journeys. Although everyone has such a unique perspective and their relationships were so unique to them, I think we can all listen and find pieces and parts of their stories that relate to our own. So I'm just honored to be sharing with you guys, these examples of people who've been in really heartbreaking, toxic, depression states and coming out on the other side and figuring out that they needed to focus on themselves and heal themselves in many different ways. So I hope you found a lot of inspiration. If you haven't caught any of the other episodes, I really encourage you to listen into them. The experts that we've had have been really informative on giving a perspective that we don't hear very often, such as Brittany Alexis, that selfish bitch, teaching us that being selfish is one of the most important things that we could do in a relationship, which is a perspective we don't hear very often, right? So continue listening in on this mini-series. Before we listen to Julia's episode, I wanted to share with you guys here first that I've been getting so many positive messages and a lot of feedback on this mini-series and how it's been helping you. So I've put together an online course and masterclass that I'll be launching in September that you can participate in whether you're single or in a relationship. And we are going to dive in week by week into many of the topics you're going to hear in this mini-series. We're going to talk about our boundaries. You're going to have homework assignments on figuring out your love language and your needs and your non-negotiables. We're going to have activities teaching you your attachment styles, better communication, questions that you can ask your partner, and ways that you can work on healing yourself so that you can show up in your relationships as the best version of yourself. Just like a lot of the stories you heard in this mini series, it took a pause and a reflection and some inspiration from other people to work on themselves. So I cannot wait to be bringing you guys this online class, this master class that we're going to go through over 8 weeks, going through all these topics because I know that relationships are the most important thing to us. We just need to be better at them. And I feel really called to put together something for you guys based on all the feedback I've been getting. So stay tuned for that. You'll hear more on this podcast as we air the next couple episodes in the month of July. Also, stay tuned to the Holistic Soul Sisters Instagram page where there'll be a lot more information. Thank you guys so much again for listening in to this mini series, and I hope you enjoy Julia's episode today. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Holistic Soul Sisters podcast. Today's episode, we're continuing on with Heartbreak to Healed. And I have one of my really dear friends here, Julia. And her story is so inspiring because she went from going through multiple relationships where she was searching for love in the other person, searching for validation. And then she got to a point, randomly enough around quarantine, and she decided to take a pause from all of that and start to heal herself. And in the last year, her journey has unfolded so beautifully. She's going to share that with us. She's going to go a little bit in depth into her healing journey. So welcome, Julia.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on our podcast, and thank you for being so vulnerable. I think it's really difficult for people to kind of self-reflect in any area of their life, but especially in relationships. So thank you for coming on and just sharing with everyone.
Awesome. I agree. It's definitely hard to kind of have that reflection process happen, but when it does, it's great. It's great. And it's also great being able to open up about this. I'm really excited.
Oh, yes. And I think, isn't there like a quote that says, when you're able to talk about your past without crying, you know you've healed?
Oh, I like that. Yeah, that sounds about right.
And I feel like with you, we've had so many conversations about relationships, and you're able to really have this outside perspective of yourself. And that's really beautiful.
Oh, thank you so
much. Okay, so to start out with the podcast, I'm asking everyone the same question so that our listeners can get a better overview of who you are in just like 2 minutes. So let's start out with, what is your sun, moon, and rising?
So my sun is a Gemini, my moon is an Aquarius, and my rising is a Scorpio.
Ooh. Okay, and then what is your life path number?
3.
A life path 3. Okay. What is your attachment style?
From what I'm understanding of the attachment styles, I am fearful avoidant.
Fearful avoidant. So that's when you really want the love and you're invested in the relationship, but then if like something scary comes along, so maybe you feel triggered or you're, fearful of going a little bit too deep, you immediately push the person back. You're like,
Right.
nope, nope, uncomfortable, and you push them away. And it can
Yep.
be a little confusing for our partners when we're fearful avoidance.
Yes.
Okay, what would you say your most toxic trait is?
Honestly, I'm really bad about gossip, and I don't mean to be. I don't view gossip the same way I think other people do, but I do realize it is gossip what's happening. I feel very open with my life,
Uh-huh.
and I forget that other people aren't like that. So sometimes I can be a little gossipy, but it's something I'm working on. I would say that's definitely my most toxic trait, though.
Okay, and then the question I absolutely love, and we'll get into further along in this podcast, is what is your favorite healing modality that's in your toolbox right now?
So I really like to have time to myself. I feel like during that time I can kind of do whatever I want. I'm not worried about people judging me or thinking I'm weird. So when I'm completely by myself, I can process my emotions, meditate if I want to. That's another thing that helps a lot.
Mm.
But mostly just being by myself so I don't have any outside chatter going on and I can just truly figure out what's going on in my brain.
Oh, I love that so much. And it's a big process to go from someone that always needs to be around people to being alone or just being afraid of like being alone.
Right. It's almost like you're a version of yourself. And when you're by
Ooh.
yourself, you get to be you. You don't have to be anybody for anybody else. Or, well, if you're a mom, you don't have to be mom. If you're a wife, you don't have to be wife. You can just be, I'm Julia. Like, I'm me. Like,
Oh,
that's all I'm worried about is how I feel. And I know who I am. Therefore, it's great to have that time alone to get to the root of what's bothering me.
oh my gosh, that's amazing. I mean, it's so obvious, but like I've never thought of it that way.
What, like you put versions of yourself with different
Yeah.
listen, and the thing is some people will call that being like fake or two-faced or whatever, but the truth is there's a different version of ourselves for every single person we know. The way I am with you is not the way I am with my mom. It's not the way, and then the way I am with my mom, it's not the way I am with my best friend. It's not the way I am with boyfriends. We're all different with different people. I mean, you're not treating your mom and your girlfriend the same way, like
Yeah.
those are two completely different relationships. So who you are, I truly think is who you feel you are when you're alone.
Yeah, and that makes so much sense when I talk to my clients. It's like I always say, "What do you do for alone time?" And I just always thought of it like in like an energetic way or maybe like a de-stress way. But I love that. That's like you're just you for you.
Right.
Period.
Right.
And that's like really what matters more than anything.
Right.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Okay, so let's dive right in. We're going to back up a little bit to the beginning of your relationship journey. How old were you when you first started either being in a relationship, thinking about a relationship? Like, can you go back to that, like, Julia, in that, like, time of your life?
So honestly, ever since I can really remember, I've been kind of boy crazy.
Yeah.
I've been obsessed with just people in general, but specifically the men. I mean, when I was 3 years old, I had this poster of Aaron Carter in my room. That was my first crush, was Aaron
Mine was
Carter.
Nick Carter.
Oh
It
my
shows
god.
our generation difference.
Yeah, so I was obsessed with him, and then but I didn't have my first like real life interaction with like feelings and stuff like that until I think my first real like, ooh, my heart, like I feel for this person. I was in 8th grade, and it was this guy that I was pretty good friends with. We were pretty close, and he just was honestly just kind of mean to me. But that wasn't really a relationship, but that was my first like, I'm having like feelings for someone. My first actual relationship. I was 18 years old. I had met this guy through a friend of a friend, and it's been my only official relationship, like boyfriend girlfriend title. I've dated a lot of people since then, but actually been in a relationship, that was my only one. It was really bad. It was a really bad relationship. We were both pretty young. I was 18 when we started dating. I kind of just had this like forever mind point.
Like,
We're gonna be
this,
together forever. Yeah, like that kind of stuff.
I think
And
everyone can remember back to that person. And some people are still with that
oh
person. And
yeah.
I am like,
wow. Like,
I
good
can't
for
imagine.
you. But I had to go through a lot of lessons.
Oh yeah, for sure. Some people get lucky on their first try. That is not the case for most people. But I honestly, it was really important though for me to have that relationship. I learned a lot. When I say the relationship was bad, we did not know how to really be together, honestly. I mean, we both had very different ideas of what a relationship was. I at 18 am thinking almost like I'm ready to be like a wife kind of thing. Like I'm
Yeah.
ready to like take care and cook and be that person.
I
And
always say Disney fucked us all up,
oh
right?
my
Because like we
gosh.
grew up thinking that like we clean like Cinderella and we can like dress pretty like Ariel, like we can do all these things, and that's what we're supposed to be.
Right. That's what like we're under the impression like this is how it's supposed to be. Like it ended because he had cheated on me.
Ooh.
And of course, it was the girl he told me not to worry about. Oh, and it was, I knew the whole time. I was just like, something's going to happen with this girl. Like, he was weird about me meeting. He didn't want to introduce me to her. And I was like, red flag. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. But, so that was my first relationship, like, experience. And it was so awful. And when we broke up, I was so sad that I started going through this kind of like serial dating stage. And it was the most I've dated in my life was the like 6 months following my breakup. I mean,
Rebound.
oh yeah,
searching for love in the next person.
Oh yeah, and then
validation.
You're like projecting almost the past issues onto the next person.
Yep.
Like the next guy, my total rebound from my ex was like a guy that I started seeing like maybe a couple weeks later or something. And when he would mess up or make a mistake, I was treating him like he was my ex-boyfriend. I was like almost like, how could you do this to me? And he's like, dude, we've been dating for like a week, chill. So yeah, I mean, that was definitely an issue that I was starting to notice in my like following dating experiences, that I was carrying on a lot of the issues that I was like that I had experienced in my relationship. And I mean, I was honestly meeting a lot of people off of like dating apps like Tinder and stuff, and that already like some people can find love on Tinder, and like good for you if you can. Honestly, it's difficult, and especially when you have things like Tinder available, because everyone sees how many options you have.
Yeah.
You know, well, I don't like this aspect of her, like her nose is too big, or he's too short, or his hair's too long, he needs to brush it, or whatever. Like, you know, like it's just
perpetuating
different
the judgment.
Right. And it's like the thing is a lot of times a lot of these people, if you met them in person, you may really like them, and if you got to know them, that's the type of people that you would be interested in. But because we're going immediately off of like the view of someone, you know, that's what it turns into. It's all about looks, and then you worry about personality, and then you're just kind of like, ugh.
And I think you bring up a really good point with that, because when it comes to like the social media and like the Tinder and stuff, you know, from a psychological and sexual perspective, we do judge our first impressions a lot, you know, but I think there's a chemical difference between judging someone's just their photo from appearance and judging someone that you would meet like at a bar, or judging someone you would meet at like a friend's house.
Oh, for
You're
sure.
still judging them by their appearance, but you have that energy exchange and that like chemical reaction.
You can see them. You can
feel.
You can see their face when they smile or laugh or something like that. And there's so much more to that, because the thing is photos. I mean, I'll tell you right now, when I was at my heaviest weight and I was on Tinder, I was catfishing straight up. Like I manipulated those photos and my poses so much because I was so insecure about how I looked. I wanted people to see me the way I kind of saw myself, like how I wanted to see myself, I should say. Not how I saw myself, but I wanted people to see me how I wanted to see myself.
Yep.
And the problem is that's not how I actually looked. So like I would take a picture in the mirror and I would like angle my entire body so I looked like 30 pounds lighter, and I would take it from an above angle so you didn't get the double chin, whatever. Like I would manipulate the pictures to look a specific way, and then you go in with like your editing like Photoshop and stuff like that, and because you want to be viewed this specific way, and in reality that's not who you are. You know, that's not how you look. And I realized that I was trying to be a specific way physically because I wanted to attract these specific guys that I was attracted to.
Yeah.
And it didn't work out that great. I have had some very bad experiences with Tinder, some very bad experiences.
Can you give us an example of like maybe just like a funny one or a crazy one?
Funny one? Oh, okay, yeah. I had actually the last date I went on was in June of last year. So, June 2020. Today it is April 14th. So, good 10 months, something
Yeah,
like that.
it's been a while.
It's been a minute. But yeah, that was the last date I went on. That was probably the worst date I've ever been on. First off, the guy, the first thing he says to me when we sit down is he's talking all about how he can't wait until he gets older. Him and his best friend are going to be in the nursing home, smoking weed, slapping nurses on the ass, and I was just that was the first thing he said to me, and I just went, I was like, no. So, and then the date continued on with him talking mostly about himself, very seldom asking me about myself. And the second he would ask me about myself, he would somehow turn it back into being about him. Brought up his ex-girlfriend like 6 times, showed me pictures of them together. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and then by the end of the date said that he wanted to go, like, are we still good to go on another date? And I was like, I guess we can. And by the time I got home, like, blocked me. Like, it was, yeah.
You were just over it.
It was such a bad date. That was one of the things that I was like, that was the date for me that I was like, I'm done with dating.
Yeah.
Like, I just kind of, after that, I deleted all my dating apps and stuff, and I was just like, I can't focus on guys anymore. It's just absolute chaos whenever I focus on men, like, and not on myself, you know.
Yep. I guess we'll kind of like go backwards and like go through the time frame, but while we're talking about this date in June of 2020, you had kind of started your own like personal development journey, just about 4 months prior, 5 months prior?
You know, funny enough, I actually started it about maybe 3 weeks before that date.
3 weeks before that date.
Yeah,
okay.
It was in May.
Okay. So you kind of like had this perspective of like, I need to change some things about myself. There's things I want to work on, but I still want to be involved with boys, right?
Oh.
Like you thought you could kind of like keep going.
That is the ultimate goal. I mean, that's always been the ultimate goal is you want to, I mean, I can't speak for all women here, but I think it's a very common dream that you want to grow up and get married and have kids, and
it's right there at the forefront.
Right.
Like in everything you do,
right.
Every time you leave the house, every time you meet a guy, like, could he be the one? Could he be the one? Could he be the one? Right? It's just like, it's right there.
Always.
That you can't really think about anything else. You can't think about what's my passion, what's my dreams, what
you're so focused on meeting another person that it's like, okay, just kind of be present in the moment here. Like, worry about yourself right now. They'll come. Who cares? It's not the end of the world if they don't, you know?
Yep.
It's almost like if you can meet the absolute bare freaking minimum, you're good enough for me. And that's just such an awful way to date people and meet people. Because it's like, you should not have your standards at the bare minimum. Your standards should be at the ceiling. Like, and that's how you know when you meet the person, you know. And
so, okay, so you went through this process, obviously with boys, one after another, crazy dating, and then you got into this relationship that was kind of toxic. Can you share a little bit about that? Because that's ultimately what led you to look in the mirror, go through almost like a mini psychotic break, and go, I'm fucking done. Yeah. Like, I'm literally done. So could you share with us as much as you're comfortable with on that relationship and like what it was within you that hit that break and then also came out of the psychotic break to be like, no more, like this is for me?
It wasn't like a boyfriend girlfriend in a relationship type thing. It was not friends with benefits, a little bit more than that, a little bit less than a relationship.
Super undefined boundaries, super undefined limits.
What are we, 24/7 and I don't know. Like, that's, so.
Already sets the tone for like the chaos in the mind.
Yeah, it was literally me constantly being like, what is going on? What are we? And so we actually used to work together. I will not try and like make excuses for him, but I will say his personal issues were what was going on was very severe. But because of this, because he had these issues going on, I was very willing to be forgiving of all the other crap that came with it. So he was involved with several other of my coworkers, but I didn't know that at the time.
So this kind of brought up like a lot of stuff from your 18-year-old relationship, right? When you were 18.
I will tell you right now, this interaction with this specific person rocked my world worse than anyone ever has. Nobody has ever, I think, made me feel the way this person made me feel. And both good and bad ways. Like, I had never really felt like I was ever truly in love with somebody until him, but I also had never felt like, I just felt absolutely unworthy of anything good. And I thought that this situation was the best that I was going to get. So I was willing to kind of settle. During this time period, this was an on and off thing for 2 years.
That's a long time. 2 years to ride the roller coaster. And so I'm sure with every high came like another low. And then the next low would be lower than that low, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there was, the big thing was that he couldn't commit because of his personal issues. And then all of a sudden, he gets into a relationship with one of our coworkers.
Ooh.
I think the main issue, though, that I had with him wasn't even so much that he was getting with these other girls, because I've dated several guys who were dating several other girls, but my issue was there would be all these rumors at work about him and these girls, and he would bring up these rumors to me to tell me they weren't true. And so he would be like, oh, like I'm just going to use your name for examples, but he'd be like, oh, somebody, so-and-so said me and Mandy are involved. Can you believe that? Can you believe that they would, like, gosh, they have no life. They're just making up stuff. Imagine you're so bored in your life that you just have to make up rumors about people 30 years younger than you. Like, all this stuff.
He's trying to get ahead of
it. Yeah, because he wanted to feel almost like if I mention it to her and I tell her before anybody else does, she's going to believe me because I swallowed whatever pride and told her, like, oh yeah, this isn't true. There was one to the extent of, like, a girl that was leaving him voicemails, and he's, like, playing the voicemails for me, leaving him voicemails talking about how, like, she's the best he'll ever have, whatever. And I was like, oh, so you, like, got with her? And he was like, no, she's crazy. And I'm thinking in my mind now,
anytime a guy says another girl's crazy,
we gotta question what they mean.
Red flag, ladies.
What you mean she's crazy?
If your boyfriend talks about his exes and says they were crazy, you gotta investigate a little deeper.
Yeah. So, I mean, I even hear the voicemail from another woman talking about basically them getting together, and I still didn't believe it.
Ooh.
Like, I still chose to believe him because I loved him. I truly was in love with him. And it was really hard to accept that he was just doing me very dirty, like, doing very wrong by me. But towards the end of our involvement with each other, we got very close, actually. Like, we were hanging out a lot, and we were talking all the time, like 24/7, like sending each other memes and texts, and I'm not doing that great, are you okay, or whatever, like relationship
you felt
stuff.
like it was going in that direction,
right? And there were so many times where it would get to the point where it seemed like the next step should happen, and he would make out like it was going to happen, and all of a sudden some third party, something that had nothing to do with us dating, would come up, and then all of a sudden now he can't be in a relationship again. The thing that kind of got to the point where it was like, okay, I had my breakdown moment, and it was because of him. And I'm not going to say that it was his fault directly, because I have to take some accountability there, it's not all one other person's fault, but it was a bunch of stuff piling on. Eventually an explosion happened, and a lot of the stuff, though, was stuff that he was putting me through.
Mm-hmm.
And so my breakdown moment was, he was supposed to come over. Okay.
This was during quarantine.
10 minutes or something before he's supposed to be here, not like leave to head over, but be here. He canceled on me and said that there was a curfew in place. And I said, no, there's not. And then he was like, yeah, there is. And I said, if you can find me one shred of evidence that there's a curfew in place, I won't make a big deal about this, but there's no curfew in place. And he was like, well, I just don't feel comfortable coming over when there's a curfew. And I'm like, you're still not finding me the documentation stating what you're saying. that for me was kind of like a oh my god moment. I just felt so like I depended so much on other people for my happiness, and he was definitely someone I depended heavily on. And I kind of lost it because he wasn't coming over. And it's like looking back on it now, my reaction was obviously over the top. But in that moment, I was going through a lot, and it was just kind of like the cherry on top that did me in. And I almost killed myself that night, honestly. It was a pretty hard time. In my mind, had a choice that I had to make. I either was going to chop all my hair off. I saw some kitchen scissors on my counter, and I was like, I'm either going to chop all my hair off or I'm going to kill myself. And I thought, might as well try cutting my hair off first, because worst case scenario, I'm dead after that. And I cut all my hair off and instantly regretted it. It looked so bad.
Oh no!
I had like a rat tail looking thing. It was really, really bad. I FaceTimed my best friend that night, and thank God she's a hairstylist.
Oh wow!
I just like FaceTimed her and just waited for her to open the camera, and she goes, "What'd you do?" And I was like, I need you to fix this.
Oh no.
It was bad. It's definitely, I'm glad she answered the phone, because I really needed somebody to just, I didn't even necessarily need to talk about what was going on. I just needed somebody, I needed to not feel alone.
Yeah.
And so that was that. I didn't stop talking to him for a little bit.
You didn't. That wasn't even the end of it.
No, that was my breakdown moment. That was the moment that I came so close to killing myself at that moment that I was like, I need some help. You know, I need to do something differently. And then after that, I was still trying to talk to him, and we were still talking all the time and everything.
Did he know about this breakdown moment?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, obviously he knew you cut your hair. Did he know it was because of that interaction? He did.
Oh, yeah.
How did he respond?
He,
like shocked, or he was just like, oh, okay.
Okay, so I had, I didn't really try and bring it up with him, but that night I had posted this like Snapchat about it, and I was just like, I'm very sad right now. And then the next Snapchat's me with all my hair chopped off and stuff, and he pretty much said that he was just watching that, and he was like, yeah, I kind of figured that was about me. And I was like, yeah, like that's pretty much what his reaction was, like that kind of a thing. Like, wasn't necessarily like good or bad or whatever. It was just like, yikes, that was.
So it kind of like probably even pushed him further away.
It might have. It might have. I mean, the following like 3-4 weeks is probably the most I've ever seen him, honestly.
Really?
But and you know what's funny enough? I was so involved in love, all this stuff, whatever, that I was feeling, and I can't remember the fight that actually.
You can't.
I can't remember the one that actually did it. I remember that the thing that finally made me say enough was he was rude to me about being rude to me about being rude to me. It was like a 3 thing. I don't even remember what the original fight was about. And at that point, I mean, he technically, I guess, left me on red, but my last message was all right. Like, that was it. Like, I was done after that point. I think we mutually, at that time, were just done with each other.
I always say the universe has this, like, beautiful way of, like, just slowly letting that person slip out of your life.
Oh, yeah.
Because if it ripped it out, like, you'd be running back, right? And so those toxic ones tend to have to, like, they have to play their course.
Exactly. And I think that's a great point, because I think for me, listen, I'm not going to say that I just let this go on for 2 years and I just accepted whatever he would give me. I mean, there were plenty of times where we had these huge fights and I would stop talking to him. That's why I'm saying on and off for 2 years. I mean, I dated other people during this time when there were time periods where me and him weren't talking. I dated one guy for like 2 months, because we worked together and because I had such strong feelings for him, it's like in the back of my head, it was still him.
Yeah.
You know?
And do you think he kind of knew that?
Oh, he had me wrapped around his finger.
Oh, he knew.
He knew. There's no way. There was one time where he literally told me, like, I know you're not going anywhere.
Ooh.
Yeah. He was like, and it was me talking about being on Tinder or whatever and telling him, because, you know, I would try and tell him, I want you to be jealous. I want you to have an issue with it so you can realize that you have feelings for me. But that's not.
So you were kind of like pushing his
Yeah.
buttons to get a reaction just to make sure he was still interested.
Right. So I was just kind of taking at that point, like, what I could get from him. Like, and not in like a manipulative, taking advantage kind of way or
No, but it was
anything, but
soothing your
like
needs.
just
Your-
whatever attention that I could get from him, I was willing to accept,
Mhm.
even though I knew it was going to make me feel like crap.
Mhm.
And the thing is you get to a certain point with toxic dating that you realize it's never going to work out. And I realized that even before anything ended, because I got to the point, like, everybody knows in my life about him.
Yeah.
Everyone knows how awful he's treated me. I have my mom, my stepdad, my stepmom, my friends, everyone telling me, like, this dude's a joke. Like, he's treating you awful. You need to move on. Even him a couple times.
Oh,
like,
wow.
I was willing to accept it. And it was awful. I don't recommend that for anyone.
But we all kind of, I think, go through that at some point, right? Like, and if you look at it in hindsight, it's kind of like now when you meet the next person, like, oh my gosh, you are going to appreciate them in such a way.
Oh, I know whenever I end up with the person I'm supposed to end up with, that it's going to be a match. Because at this point, I mean, I've taken so long to not date, to
That's
figure out what I want.
huge.
Yeah, I mean, I've had people approach me and stuff in the last 10 months that I haven't been dating. But it's like the second I find something that I'm like, I can't like really vibe with this, I don't like this, or you and I have different beliefs, or I'm not gonna, that's another thing. I will not get into any type of dating if I know you and I have very different beliefs, because I mean, I'm thinking long term, you know?
Yeah.
I'm thinking if we get married and have kids, I don't want to confuse the hell out of my kids because mommy believes one thing and daddy believes another, you know? It's,
Yep.
I don't want to have, I want to be on the same page. And
Yep.
that's my main thing, is I want to be on the same page about certain things. And, I mean, I think you need to experience a level of healing to truly understand what it is that you need and what it is that you want.
Yes. Okay. I love this. Like, I love this. Like, the perfect transition, because you were saying earlier that you were willing to take whatever you could get from him, whatever it was.
Mhm.
And now you're saying after this healing that you are actually qualifying people.
Oh yeah, I'm selective.
What a huge shift in just a year. So let's talk about the healing process,
Mhm.
because this is the beautiful part, right? Because we can look back at our version of ourselves in that relationship and be like, wow, like I just have so much love for that girl who really needed all these things, and now I'm in a different space.
Mhm.
So how did this healing process look? Because it's so different for everyone, and I know that therapy was kind of something that you dove into. So how did that all unfold? Like, where was that moment that you looked at yourself in the mirror and you said, I need to do something different, but what?
So yeah, so the night that I cut my hair off was the beginning. That was for me when I realized I need to figure out something with therapy. I need to figure out something with talking to someone.
You ever done therapy?
I've actually done therapy most of my adolescent life.
Okay.
I was in therapy and I tried multiple therapists and psychologists and even a psychiatrist, like from the time I was 10 until I think the last time as an adolescent that I had gone to anyone, I was like 17 or
Okay.
something like that. And so I'd taken a break from it because I just figured, you know, it didn't work. I had, during that course of time, I think I had seen like 5 or 6 people. And the thing is, I mean, if you're listening right now and you're thinking, oh, I've tried therapy out, it doesn't work, keep trying.
Yeah.
Because there is going to be your match out there for a therapist. And that's what happened to me. So I was contemplating killing myself. I started having really frequent panic attacks, like debilitating, hyperventilating, shaking on the floor, can't breathe, like very bad panic attacks. And I started having them. I had experienced panic attacks before in my life, but it was usually something crazy would trigger it.
Right.
But during this time period, I mean, I was like, I would have panic attacks over nothing, you know, and it was these debilitating ones, like I can't function. And I got to the point I'm having 3 in a week.
Oh,
and
it's your soul screaming for love.
Right, help me, help. Like, I just, anytime it would happen, I was like, why? I am in control of myself, but why can I literally not control myself? So it took a bunch of that, and honestly, I don't remember what the final thing was, but it was just a mixture of all this crap going on that it was like, all right, I'm gonna look into therapy. And around this time, this was, now we're in the end of May, Around this time, I had been getting unemployment, and I had been making more on unemployment than I did working 2 jobs, 60 hours a week. And luckily, through the unemployment process, I was able to set aside some extra money and could afford to start going and seeing a therapist. And I, during this time period, I wasn't going in person, and I still haven't gone in person or anything. I downloaded the BetterHelp application. There's also a website. It's like affordable therapy. They have
BetterHelp.
yeah, BetterHelp.
BetterHelp.
And they have financial options, which is great. If it's something to where you can't like afford it. And so what I was doing is I was like during that time period, I had that extra money and decided to go and start the therapy. And I specifically wanted a male therapist. Don't even know why, but like I specifically wanted a male therapist, and I kept doing the random option to choose a new one.
Okay.
And I did it a couple times, and then it landed on my current therapist, and it was a woman, and I looked at her and I was like, she looks nice. So we're just going to go with her. And shout out Dora, if you listening right now, love you.
Life changer.
Life changer. Like seriously, just the best. So I started going to therapy, started talking to her, and she was just so different than any therapist I'd ever had. She was amazing. She was like kind of like the way you want your mom to treat you.
Oh,
it was great.
beautiful.
It was great. It was like she was very nurturing and caring and non-judgmental of anything I said, and tells you I'm proud of you and that kind of stuff. And any small accomplishment that would seem very minute to someone else, like she would make a big deal about it and make you feel special and stuff. And it was just kind of like stuff that I was needing to hear. But the thing that just completely changed my life. She told me that from what it sounds like to her, she says, okay, it sounds like you're having issues with self-love. And she goes, so you need to work on that. We need to improve your self-love and how you view yourself and stuff. And I said, honestly, I'm going to ask you this, and I'm so embarrassed to ask you this. What does self-love look like? Because I don't know.
Wow.
And it's a very hard thing to admit that you don't know how to love yourself. I remember crying as I asked her that. And even talking about it now, it gets me a little emotional, because you have to understand when you go your whole life not knowing how to love yourself, and then someone tells you you don't know how to love yourself, and you realize like, oh shit, I don't know how to love myself. Like, it really puts your life into perspective, and you start to, once you understand what self-love is, you look back and you realize all the times that you could have given yourself love that you didn't, that you beat yourself up. And then you start to feel kind of bad, but not in a way that's like negative.
Yeah.
Almost like, my poor younger self, I wish I could just give you a hug and tell you to love yourself.
Just go back.
Just like love yourself. I mean, and the thing is for for a lot of people, they don't know what self-love looks like. And I asked her, so what does it look like? And she tells me, you need to speak to yourself the way, and I say this to everyone, you need to speak to yourself the way you would speak to a friend. And she said, if you wouldn't say it to a friend, you do not say it about yourself.
Wow.
So she was like, if you have a friend who, like, you wouldn't tell your friend that they're fat, you wouldn't call your friend ugly, you wouldn't tell your friend that they're a piece of shit. So, like, if you wouldn't say that to your friend, why would you say that to yourself? Why would you talk to yourself as if you are this awful person?
Your enemy.
Right. And the truth is I've had so many realizations since discovering what self-love is and stuff. And one thing I realize is that, like, you are the only person in your life who is going to be there for your entire life. Everyone else, like, again, like going back to alone time, you're still with yourself. You are going to be with yourself as long as you live. Therefore, you should like who you are. Yeah. You should like what you see in the mirror. You should like how you treat other people. And if you don't like it, that is a sign that you need to change. If you have an issue with something you're doing, whether it's your perception or your actions, you need to change. And sometimes life shows us that, and we don't want to listen, and we just kind of ignore it and stuff. And I think that's what my life had been doing. But before understanding what the concept of self-love was, I couldn't really make a difference. But now that I did, all these things that had already been happening were happening again. And I was like, okay, it's time to switch things up.
Got a chance to like do a different thing.
Right. And I mean, I have to be honest, when you take charge of your life and yourself and stop caring so much about everything else, it's exhilarating. It's indescribable.
You just have more energy to run for your dreams. You're not so focused on what does this person want me to be and how should I show up and am I like this and am I good enough? Like all these thoughts take up energy.
Right.
And then we leave 20% left over for, okay, I want to like open my own business.
And
But
sometimes not even that.
you're
Sometimes
exhausted.
you're like tapped out because you
Exhausted.
gave off all your energy to other people. And the thing is like you are who you need to focus on.
Yeah.
You know, because everything else will happen. It's going to happen with or without your help. I mean, how many times have you done something that had external influences coming into the mix and it didn't go the way you wanted because of said external influences? But how many times do you have control over a situation that you can do and you can get better at? You know, if you have a hobby that you want to do and you want to get better at it and you suck at it now, you have to keep going, keep trying, keep doing all this stuff. And part of self-love is recognizing that you're not perfect or even great at it, and that the way to be great or get better is to keep going. And I think all of us know that, but the problem is putting that thought into action.
You don't want to suck.
Right.
So you just don't do it.
Right.
Ever.
That's perfectionist mentality to a T.
Yep.
Guilty as can be on my part, but
Yep.
it's hard when you want everything to be a specific way and then it doesn't turn out that way. When you learn to let go of control is the other thing. When you want to have control of everything, I mean, think about that for a second. How boring. Like, if you know the outcome of everything, imagine every show you watched, you knew exactly what was going to happen. Like, down to the random character that they just added in, and somehow they're in the guilty party, whatever. Like, you even knew that, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you knew every plot twist, you knew every cliffhanger, you knew every potential motive. I mean, gosh, how boring would that be if you knew, if life was truly predictable? So embracing the current moment you're in, not putting so much thought into what's going to happen or what happened, and just focus on the present moment. That's another thing that's really helped me a lot with healing, is to stop getting so caught up in everything else, because if there's nothing you can do about it at this exact moment, why are you wasting your energy on it?
Oh, yeah, that's so true. It's hard to put that into practice. Like you said, like these are three big concepts, that can be overwhelming when you first are introduced to them by therapists or friends or a book or a podcast. Self-love, huge concept, and then put it into practice. Letting go of control, huge concept, difficult to put into practice. And then this being present right here, right now in the moment, really difficult to put into practice. So for you to take these three things and actually start implementing them in your life, I'm sure it just was like a snowball effect, right? Like at first you kind of do it once in a while, and then you start doing it more and more and more, and then you just get really good at doing it on a daily basis that it becomes almost like subconscious.
Oh yeah. I mean, listen, the thing is that it's not easy. Like, it's not like, oh, decided I'm gonna love myself, now everything's sunshine and rainbows. I mean, when I first started going through therapy, my panic attacks actually got worse. I went from having them 3 times a week to a couple times a day. And I this was before my second or third session with my therapist, and I had messaged her because that's the other thing with BetterHelp is you can message the therapist throughout the week as well, which is pretty cool. But so I reached out to her and I said, listen, like, I'm kind of scared right now. My stuff's getting worse. And kind of like what we say in skincare, when you start getting facials, you kind of have to purge all the gunk. When you get a facial, all the gunk that's been hanging out in your skin, or when you start taking better care of your skin, all the gunk comes to the surface so that it can leave. All the toxins.
Just like in gut health healing.
Right. They all just leave.
They got to erupt to come out.
Exactly. And that's the same thing with your mental health. It might get worse before it gets better. You may have worse panic attacks. You may have worse fears. You may have worse depression. But the thing is you are now dealing with all this stuff going on. And my big issue was I had a lot of trauma involving my dad growing up. And that's really where a lot of this stuff boiled down to, and having to deal with that. I mean, there would be times where I would think about something and I would think about what happened. And even though when it happened to me at 5 years old, it didn't think of it as like this awful thing. When you think about it now, it's like you lose your breath. It like,
oh, this really happened
whoa,
to me.
whoa, right. And it feels sometimes when you talk about your own traumatic memories, it feels like you're talking about like a movie or
someone
something.
else's story.
It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like you have experienced that, and then you realize you have. And first off, you need to give yourself some credit for enduring that, because that's a big thing.
Yeah.
Having to endure trauma, it's hard.
And then reliving it later in
Right.
life, willingly.
Right.
Willingly wanting to relive it.
Exactly.
Oof.
And you start to figure out what it is that makes you tick.
Yeah.
That's the cool part. Once you get to the root of it, it's like, oh. And then it seems so simple too. Like you get to the root of what's going on. And then that trial at that point is to do things differently.
Yeah. Now, do you feel like in your next relationship, because you've done this work on yourself, and I'm sure you're going to continue on doing more and more work. I mean, this isn't just like a 1 year, I'm done, I'm good, right? This is something when you're in the middle of it, it's like, I actually start enjoying it so much that I want it to be like a part of the rest of my life.
Right.
Always uncovering. That's so beautiful. So do you feel like the next relationship that you get into, you're going to be able to identify these triggers better than you have ever done before?
Oh, 100%. I'm very connected to my intuition now. And because of all of the work that I've put in to better myself, I understand self. You know, I understand who I am. I know who I am. I know what I want to do. I know, and the thing is I don't mean I know what I want to do and like what job do I want to do? I mean, I know what I want to do, like the type of person I want to be, and the type of person I am to other people. And I have a better understanding of my purpose and why I'm here. And the thing is it's difficult to get to that point and put those things in motion. But once you do, I mean, it's, yeah. And then applying it to a future relationship, I mean, I just know that I have gotten really good about communicating my issues.
That's good.
And I don't want to be with someone if they are not good at communicating. And I don't want, my other thing is I don't want to get with somebody who I feel like still has all this work that needs to be done, because I feel like I'm at my certain level, and I don't want to get with someone and feel like I have to be a mom.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of times when I date people, that's what I feel like. I feel like I have to be a mom and nurture them and make sure they're okay. And, oh, you poor thing, you've been through so much, whatever. I mean, the thing is it's not my job to make someone else feel better about themselves. And that's the problem that I've always had with dating, is I want to make people feel better about themselves. But I now realize that I want to help people feel better about themselves from their own perspective.
Yeah.
Not from my perspective. And I don't want to date somebody who feels like they need all this external validation to feel good about themselves. So I feel like a lot of the issues that I've had in prior relationships, I recognize, I see the root of what caused that. I see what the pattern was. Because another thing is, if you look at your dating history, there's usually some type of pattern.
Absolutely.
Like, either you keep dating abusive people, you keep dating manipulative people, you keep dating unavailable people, you keep dating needy people, whatever it is, there is some type of pattern. And maybe the pattern isn't their personality or their looks, but it's just one small thing that seems to be repeating itself. And if there's a pattern, figure out what that is. Yep. What is causing that? And you can easier identify the bullshitters in the future.
Yep.
Like, I now know what emotionally unavailable men look like. The second that I start talking to a guy and they start talking about how they're just not ready for a relationship right now because of the my ex really just messed me up. Okay, bye.
Yep.
Go work on yourself then.
Yep.
You don't need to be on a date with me.
Huge. And that's like a boundary. You know?
Right.
I think it's so important for us to like have those boundaries, write them down. Like, know what's a hard no for me. Like, if you're this way, it's just a hard no. Like, maybe you'll grow and maybe we'll bump into each other in 5 years and it'll work. But like, for now, it's a no.
Right.
That's really important to know. Okay. So I guess real quick, and then I have like one final wrap up question. So real quick, since you've done this work, since you've, kind of focused your energy inward and on you, what are some highlights and some wins that you've had since going through this process?
Yeah, so I left the job that I was working with that guy.
Okay.
So I haven't seen him in a long time at this
Right.
point. I haven't seen him since whenever I saw him last in May. So that's one thing. I have started diving deeper into my spiritual reality. So I do Reiki now. I'm a Reiki practitioner.
And she's amazing at it, by the way. If you're local to Tampa Bay, you've got to get a Reiki session with her.
Thank you.
She not only helped made me feel like an angel, but has like connected me with my like angelic archetype. It's been really beautiful.
It's honestly a really fun thing to do, and it's a very fulfilling thing for me. I know that I'm helping people, and it feels great, but then I feel connected in a way that I wouldn't normally get to be connected with people. So, yeah, the Reiki is really cool. I've really developed my relationships with, get this, every single person I know.
Every person.
I was able to have a talk and forgive my father for
huge.
a bunch of the trauma that had happened between us. I had started talking to one of my biological brothers, who
What?
I hadn't done that really in the past full blown, so I did that. And then, I mean, there's been a bunch of things, but I feel like me putting out there what I'm going through, what I'm doing, what the plan is, has helped me, and a lot of people around me have sent me private messages saying that like I've like my mindset or whatever helped them think about something differently, or like, how do you think about things from this point of view? And the highlights really are me helping other people. I don't know. I think people being able to receive help as well as ask for it, and me being able to actually do something about that, it's great.
I love that. And that's just because you're, again, so connected in yourself that you're able to like go deep with other people. And that only comes from doing the work.
Right. You got to get to that point. And then once you get past a certain point, you realize you can help other people see life differently. Because once you see life through this lens, there's no going back.
No going back.
No going
so
back.
True. Oh, okay. I love it. So with this entire Heartbreak to Healed series, after we go through all of this and we do the work on ourselves, like you just said, and it's like the beautiful like cycle, it's like we go through it, we learn the lessons, we work on ourselves, we heal ourselves, and then we can help others heal. So in 60 seconds, I'm going to set a timer.
Okay.
60 seconds, what would you say to the girl? And you could think to like speaking to yourself, or to, you could just like visualize in your head, that woman that's like listening to this podcast and she's like at that low, either in a relationship that she wants to stay in, like for kids or, whatever, but she's really struggling, or someone who just got out of a relationship and they're like in that space of like heartbreak, lost, confusion. Like we can all think to a period of our life when we were like sitting in that spot. In 60 seconds, what would you say to that person?
So I think that the most important thing that you can do for yourself is to focus on yourself. That is the absolute most important thing. And it seems pretty obvious, but if you take the time to get to know yourself, write down stuff. I mean, take a pros and cons list to your situation. What's good about it? What's not good about it? Do the cons outweigh the pros? I mean, it's tale as old as time to write down the good and bad of the situation, but it really does help. And start writing lists of things going on in your brain, like what are you picking up? What are you noticing? Journal more, meditate more. If you prefer to pray, pray. Get in touch with yourself. And don't let other outside influences affect that. If you have kids, of course, worry about your kids, but also understand that you need to be present in yourself to be able to be there for other people. So make you first.
Oh, that was so good. I love it. Thank you so much. I feel like it's really inspirational just to hear your journey and how everyone is so unique, but yet we all go through the like most common threads in relationships. So it's been beautiful. We haven't known each other since she went through all this. We've only known each other about 7-8 months.
About that, yeah.
But in those 7 and 8 months, I have like just seen you explode with confidence, explode in your ability to help others, and then see this like business that you're growing in the spiritual community and helping other women just blossom. So I'm really excited to see where your journey continues, and thank you again for being here with us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for listening.
And
before I wrap up this episode, I just want to let you guys know how you can get a hold of Julia if you have any questions or you want to share with her your personal story, or if you'd love to treat yourself to a Reiki session by her if you're local to the Tampa Bay area. Her updated Instagram handle is Julia Paige, Paige 777. Find her on Instagram. I will link it in the show notes below. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And as always, make sure you keep healing holistically and growing spiritually. I'll catch you guys in the next episode.